Hi students, in this video I'll be going through the 2013 O-Level Paper 1 question 8. Alright, so it's a application question related to exponential functions. Okay, so let's start by reading the question. Okay, so the question goes, the temperature big T degrees Celsius of a chicken removed from a freezer is given by the formula big T equals to 20 minus 38 e to the power of negative 0.6 small t. Okay, where small t is the time in hours since the chicken was removed from the freezer. Right, so this statement, t is the time in hours, right? Since the chicken was removed from the freezer is actually a very important statement. Okay, because it actually tells us that they started the timing for this particular scenario, right? When they took out the chicken from the freezer, right? And this will enable us to answer part 1. Okay, so find the temperature at which the chicken is kept in the freezer. Okay, so since we know that they started the timing only when the chicken was taken out from the freezer, right? So to find the temperature at which the chicken is kept in the freezer, we will just substitute T with 0. Okay, that means at the very beginning of the particular scenario. Okay, so that's what we are going to do for part 1. So when T equals to 0, okay, so big T equals to 20 minus 38 e to the power of minus 0.6. So I'm going to replace small t with 0. Okay, so this will give us 20 minus 38. So negative 0.6 times 0 is just 0, e to the power of 0 lah. And we know that anything to the power of 0 is going to become 1. Okay, so you have this case. Okay, so we have 20 minus 38, so we will have negative 18, right? Right, so that means the temperature inside the freezer must have been negative 18 degrees Celsius. Right, then for part 2, find the temperature of the chicken where T is equals to 2. Okay, so this is a very similar question to part 1, just that now we substitute small t with 2. Right, so 20 minus 38 e to the power. Okay, so right, so you can just compute this inside your calculator and then round off your answer to 368, and then you should be able to get 8.55 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is the answer for part 2. Okay, so let's take a look at part 3. Express small t as a function of big T. Okay, so the original equation gave us the function in this form. Okay, so now basically what we need to do is we need to make small t the subject, right? So this is just like in your e-math where you make subject of formula, right? So we got to slowly manipulate this equation until small t is by itself on the left side. Okay, so for this one, the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this negative 38 e to the power of minus 0.6 small t to the left side, right? So the big T will go to the other side, so it will look something like this. Okay, then from here, some of you may be tempted to ln both sides. Okay, but it will be good if you can perform an additional step before lning both sides, which is to divide by 38 on both sides first. So if I divide by 38 on both sides, then you end up with this particular equation. Then this is when you will ln both sides. Okay, because if you were to start lning in the second step over here, if you start lning over here, then you will need to apply the product law of logarithms to split this up, and it's going to be a bit troublesome now. Okay, so we don't want to do that, right? So then it's only at this step then you can ln both sides. Okay, so this will be easier. Okay. Okay, so why do we want to ln both sides? Because this is there's an e over here, and ln is base e, all right? And we know that ln e is going to become 1. Okay, so we're going to apply the power law. Okay, we're going to bring the negative 0.6 t, which is the power, all the way to bring it down. Okay, then we will have this case. Right, then ln e as mentioned is 1. Okay, then at the same time, I'm going to change 0.6 to a fraction, okay? So it's 3/5. Okay, so we will end up with this. Okay, then we're almost done already. Got to bring the negative 3/5 to the other side, and we can do so by multiplying by negative 5/3. Okay, because negative 3/5 times negative 5/3 will give you 1, and that's where you will get 1t. Okay, so you'll get this. Okay, then from here we can actually bring this negative sign, right? Using the power law, we can actually bring it up over here. Okay, so let's see what we'll get. So we'll get 5/3 ln 20 minus t over 38 to the power of negative 1. Okay, so this negative sign in front is actually a negative 1. Okay, then we know that for a fraction, okay, if you have power negative 1, you can just flip it over and the power becomes positive 1. Right, so the final answer should be okay, so this will be the final answer. So we have made small t the subject. Okay, right. So do look through this. Not a very typical question, but not too difficult as well. Okay. Next part, the last part of the question. Explain why the temperature of chicken can never reach 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is a rather unusual question. Okay, so it's not the typical question that you find. Okay, but always observe what we have and then we try to work from there. Okay, so the temperature of the chicken is big T. They're asking you why big T can never be 20 or more. That means why big T? In other words, explain why big T. Okay, so if you rephrase this, they're asking you to explain why big T is less than 20, why it can never reach 20. Okay, so the way to answer this kind of question is we always observe this exponential term. Okay, just like for those quadratic equation in the completing the square form, you want to explain why it's always above the x-axis or completely below the x-axis, you always observe the square term. Okay, so for an exponential function, you always observe the exponential term. Okay, because an exponential term is always greater than 0. Okay, exponential term. If you were to sketch out this e to the power negative 0.6t, right, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so this is t, then this is the value of this. Okay, so as t increase, the e to the power negative 0.6t will just get smaller and smaller, but it will always remain above the x-axis. That means, in other words, always positive lah. Okay, so you can actually just sub in various values of t and calculate. It will just get closer and closer to 0, but still positive. Okay, so that's why we want to start by observing this. Okay, so now we try to make this into this form. Okay, so we will multiply by negative 38 on both sides. Okay, so remember that for a inequality, when you multiply by negative number, you need to flip the sign. Okay, even if the right side is 0, also need to flip the sign. Okay, then there's a 20 here, so in other words, you are adding 20, right? Alright. So if I add 20 here, for math, you need to do the same thing on the right side. Add 20 here. Okay, then you notice that this whole thing is t, right? Correct? This whole thing is t. Okay, so we can conclude that t will be less than 20, and you have shown already. Okay, so you can conclude, hence the temperature of the chicken can never reach 20 degrees C. Right, so not a typical question, and a lot of times students are afraid of explaining type of questions, but do try more of such questions and you will get more confident in it. All right.